Hey guys, Trevor Reed here. This is my capstone project. We were tasked with identifying if we were able to use Baton Rouge as a minimum required alternate from our trip from Lynchburg, Virginia to Little Rock, Arkansas, which, funny to be, I actually do my flight training here in Little Rock. So, um, we were given a forecast for our ETA, and we were tasked with identifying via Nav1, Nav2, Nav1, Nav2 if we could use that as a legal minimum alternate. So to first start here, we look at the weather for our alternate, which is Baton Rouge. So at our ETA of 1800 Zulu, our weather is 500-foot ceilings and 1 mile visibility. It's not very high and can be a pretty difficult task. So through Liberty Airlines, we are actually not allowed to use the alternate minimums that are published on the Jeppesen charts. We have to use the table from Nav1, Nav2 mode. So there's a little more into it, and we'll get into that next. So first we'll look at the 1nav. Our aircraft is a CRJ-200, and it is not capable of GPS approach, so all the RNAV approaches into Baton Rouge are not applicable for our aircraft, so that's out of the picture. It was given to us that the ILS for 22 right is out of service, so there's no glide slope, and we can't use that. So we'll have to use the localizer for 22 right if we were going to use that approach. So we'll begin with the ILS 13. Those minimums were 200 and 1/2 mile vis, and so we're using 1 nav, which means we have to add 400 feet and 1 mile vis. So that changes that to 600 and 1 1/2 mile vis minimum for us to use that as an alternate. The localizer for 13 is 413 and 3/4 mile vis, so another 400. We have 901 and 3/4 vis. The localizer for 22 right is 410 feet. The decision height or minimum descent altitude would be 410 feet and 3/4 mile vis. We add another 400 to that, would be 901 and 3/4. The VOR for 4 left is 551 and 3/4 vis. Add another 400, we'll have 1,000 and 2 3/4 vis. 2 3/4 vis. And then the VOR for 22 right was 410 and 1 1/4 vis. So a 400 and a mile vis would be 900 and 2 1/4. So when we look at Nav1, we look at the lowest altitude or the lowest minimums, which is 600 and 1/2 mile for the ILS, or 1 1/2 mile for the ILS. This is not above the, or not below the 500 and 1 mile vis that we are given for weather. So nav1 or 1 nav is not applicable, so we're going to have to go into 2 nav. So first, okay, so now we're looking at 2 nav here, and again ILS 22 right is out of service. So for 2 nav, we can actually add 200 feet to our minimum, to our decision height or MDA, and a 1/2 mile vis. So the ILS for 13 is 200 and 1/2 mile vis. Add 200 is 401. Localizer 13 is 413 and 3/4. Now it's 700 and 1 1/4. Localizer for 22 right is 410 and 3/4. So add a 200 and 1/2 mile, 700 and 1 1/4. The VOR for 4 left is 551 and 3/4. Which adds up to 800 and 1 1/4 now. And then the VOR for 22 right is 410 and 1 1/4. And so now for the nav2, we have to choose 2 separate nav aids on 2 different runways. So looking at that, we would choose the lowest, which is the ILS 13, 401, and the highest, which would be the VOR for 4 left at 800 and 1 1/4. So is Baton Rouge legal? No, it is not legal for us to use as an alternate, because either using Nav1 or Nav2, we were unable to get below the required minimums. We couldn't get below 501. However, if we were to use the ILS for 22 left, if the ILS was in fact working for 22 right, and also the ILS for 13 was working, we could actually use nav 2 or 2 nav to be able to combine those to give you 402, and that would or 401, and that would be able to be used as an alternate. But since is actually out of service, Baton Rouge is not able to be used as an alternate. So if the ILS for 22 right was actually able to be used, the NAV1 would be 600 and 200 or 2000 RVR, and NAV2 we could actually use both the ILS minimums of 200 and 1/2 and 200 and 1/2, and that would give us the 401, which would be below the minimums for the 500-foot ceiling and 1 mile viz that we are forecasted to have at our destination. So, with that said, the ILS is actually out of service, so the airport we would not be able to use as a minimum.